All right, guys, got a video on proofs. These can be a little bit tricky, but I'm going to show you some tips and tricks that I think will make it a lot better for you, especially if you can use two-column proofs. Here we need to prove that this left triangle and this right triangle are congruent. Or you might say a triangle ABC is congruent to triangle EDC. So that's kind of what's going on in this one. And they usually give you a couple things, and we're going to take those and put those into a two-column proof. So what do they give us? They give us that ED is congruent to AB. I'm always a big proponent on marking up your picture if possible. So ED is this one, and AB is this side. So I like to put little tick marks there to indicate that those two are congruent. And I'm going to write that down in my proof. Okay, and then you'll notice there that I put the reason is the given. So you kind of think of this as the statements, and that is the reasons. Okay, what else do they give us? They give us that angle A and angle D are also congruent. So again, mark that up, angle A and angle D. Okay, and then if you remember, we only need three things to prove that a triangle is congruent. In fact, we have either side, side, side congruence, we have angle, angle, side, we have angle, side, angle, side, angle, side, and then hypotenuse leg, which only comes into effect when there are right triangles, which we don't have. And so which of these do we have? Well, we have a side and an angle, right? A side angle. So I can cross out all the sides, I can cross out the hypotenuse leg, and all the other ones have at least a side and an angle. And so I need one of those other pieces, and then I'm going to follow around kind of in that order, and that's going to be the reason that we're going to give that this thing is congruent. So there's usually two things that they'll give you in these triangles that's kind of missing. The first off is if they're butted up against each other, all right? So for example, if I were to draw, maybe you've seen proofs like this where you prove that the left and the right are congruent and they share a side, right? That is shared by what's called the reflexive property. One side and the other are the exact same. Okay. The other part, or the other thing that might give you is that if they crisscross, which is what ours is doing. And when they crisscross like that, any two angles that crisscross are congruent, right? Those are what's called vertical angles. And so here I can, by the fact that these are vertical angles, I can see in this picture, I can put two loops. We already used one loop, so I can put two loops there and say angle ACB, so it's left angle. So my third one, angle ACB. I have to use three letters because there's multiple angle C's here, is congruent to angle DCE. All right, and the reason for that is, like I said, those are vertical angles. So for number 3, we're going to say this is vertical angle. Some teachers let you say VA, right? I'll spell it out for you. Vertical angles. All right, then the last thing is we need to show that that is proved now. And so I can put my proof statement in this last line, which in this one is number 4, and just kind of recopy this proof statement, which is triangle ABC is congruent to, is congruent to triangle EDC. And then the reason for that, well, what do we have now? If I were to follow these different parts around, let's start with maybe this one. This is an angle, that's an angle, and then a side. If I do it the other way, an angle, and a side. All right, now if you do it the wrong way, that's fine, right? Side, angle, angle, well, that isn't one, but you can always reverse the order. And so AAS, or angle, angle, side, is the reason that those two triangles are congruent. Okay, now with that, a couple other things that you might want to note is if you're given, so if this helps you can be done with the video, of course, but let's say you're given these 4 lines with the statements and the reasons, you know, they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, and you have no clue. Don't get 8 points off on this problem, right? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Don't do that. Don't just miss all 8 of those. Know that if they give you 2 things, those are going to go in these first 2 spots, right? This is exactly what I wrote up here and here. Those are my givens, right? Fill that in. That's going to be probably 2 points out of your 8. And then the other one is that your proof statement is going to be this last line on the statement side. So you have usually around half or so of those points that you can get back. Now, the other thing is you probably know what those 5 things are. Maybe take a look at your picture and guess one of them, right? If you're not quite sure, maybe say, well, they gave me an angle, they gave me a side, I'm going to guess this one. And maybe you'll be right, okay? So if you have no idea what's happening, at least try a little bit. The other thing with that is almost all of these problems will give you something that you can use, like the reflexive property here, if they're butted up against each other, or vertical angles like that. And then that's going to go in the one that wasn't filled in as the reason. So if you can fill those in, you're kind of halfway there as to knowing what's going on. Then you might as well just learn the rest of it with watching maybe a few more of these videos or do a little bit more practice on your own. So my point is, don't just leave it blank. All right, try to get a few points. That's really going to help you to use some of these strategies to at least fill in your proof that way.